Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Tina Alton, President and founder of Nations of Women. Of course, we all know what is going on globally with the coronavirus at the moment and the big economic impact that it's having in the nations, but specifically on business owners. I am a business owner myself. My husband is a business owner himself. We've been in business for 20 years. So I do understand, the pressure, and it's really unprecedented times. We've had such an overwhelming request for help. And so what I'm doing, as you have gathered from all the other series, is bringing experts from within my network to you. And today I have the absolute privilege of having Andrew Armitage here with us. He is one of the industry experts when it comes to digital marketing here in the United Kingdom, and one of the people I will personally go to say, Andrew, help. And so thank you so much, Andrew, for giving us your time as a gift to us and all the other business owners who will catch this session. So before we go into our conversation, I'd like you to take just a brief moment and share a little bit with us about yourself and why you're the expert, so that those who don't know can also know.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to help people as much as we can under these difficult circumstances. So I run a digital agency called A Digital, and we are fundamentally, we build websites, but we support them with search, social media, and digital marketing. And we're proud to have won a few awards over our time for building e-commerce websites. And really, we're just wanting to offer as much help as we possibly can to guide people with their digital marketing. Perhaps if they're thinking of changing their approach, where should they spend their money? Where could they save money? All those sorts of things right at this point in time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. So if we can just go straight into our questions for today. Obviously, we know that even governments are feeling the economic impact, and they're making, really probably unthinkable steps to actually change things. If we take the United Kingdom, the NHS are now going to be emailing, they're literally adopting like digital tools, if you will, to actually manage this epidemic on this scale. And now, if you bring it back to the small business owner, a lot of businesses may not necessarily have adopted, the online digital tools and resources that have been available. And now we're realizing that actually we have been taking them for granted. What is your number one advice for a business that maybe had a presence already, but hadn't really fully appreciated or understood how to make the best of it, if you will, now to then come to think, oh my gosh, now I'm faced with this situation? What is the first thing that business owners should be doing, as far as like when we even think, let's say, websites, or when we think digital marketing? What is the first thing that a business owner should think about?
I think the first thing now that we all need to be thinking of is the situation that we're all in as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's circumstances, everybody's life has changed. And I think fundamentally we're looking at a human crisis here, aren't we, first and foremost? But inevitably that has a knock-on effect in business, in terms of how economies even operate. So I think it's really important that we just take stock and think about who it is we're wanting to interact with. Who is it that we want to be our customers? Yes, of course, we're going to have existing customers that we might have worked with for, in some cases, perhaps many years. And of course, it's going to depend on the type of product or service that you offer and the sector that you're in. But really, everybody's circumstances have now changed. And I think it's really important just to take stock and think about who it is, what sort of scenario or what sort of circumstances might they now find themselves in. And that really should give you an opportunity to stop and think, are we offering the same product? Do we offer the same products and services in the way that we always have done, because there's still a critical need for it and there's still people that are looking for it? Or do we have to adapt our products and services, and particularly the delivery of those products and services? Because of course now, if we are all social distancing, we've been advised to stay at home, away from public spaces, then people's behavior is going to start changing. And once people's behavior starts changing, our habits change, and sometimes it can be very difficult to go back to old habits. I've little doubt that over the course of time, people will return to cinemas, theatres, pubs, restaurants, and so on. But in the way people look for information, they're not going down to the shop. They're not going to pick up a newspaper because these things are less accessible now. So they will start and consume content online more than they already have been. So you need to make sure that any content you're going to be creating is perfectly matched, or at least as closely matched as you possibly can make it for the audience that's going to be looking at it.
Okay, perfect. So what I've heard is, even though we're in such a unpredictable, nobody can predict even next week what the situation could be. But then as a business owner, don't feel discouraged, because there is still a great opportunity to actually, I'm borrowing the term, like reinvent and reimagine your business, if you will. Within Nations of Women, we have a terminology that now is the time to reimagine your life, your story, your business. So what are some of the tools if a business owner, I would imagine, I can't remember the actual statistics, but well, I don't want to quote a number and get it wrong, but if you do, I really love to hear in terms of the number of business owners that have a presence online. Would you say that where they're already online, should they be doing anything specifically around, let's say, their website? Because you've talked about the content being created for consumption online, because obviously habits and behavior are going to change. But is now a good time for a business owner to be thinking about their website? And if so, what are the key what are the key things that they need to be thinking about now as far as their website?
Okay, so I think there's two schools of thought just at the moment, and some of this does come back to the audience that we were talking about a moment ago, because if you understand your audience, you'll know where they're spending their time, and that will indicate to you whether you should be focusing on social media activity, because perhaps that's where your customers are spending their time, or whether perhaps you need to offer something that's a bit more authoritative, or you've got more depth and detail that you need to share, and that's when people will visit your website. So, first off, understand where it is people are going to be consuming that content. I think as far as websites go, right now, it's really important to communicate. Communication is always a key, and it comes down to setting expectations, making it clear that you're either available, you're open or closed, because we're in situations where businesses have been completely shut down. And people have high expectations these days, and they will take to social media to express their frustration when things don't work out. So, okay, it's obvious if you're a cinema or a cafe, but if you're another business that might have just taken the optional decision to close, but you haven't communicated that to your audience, perhaps somebody turns up to collect something, or they turn up to browse your showroom, or whatever it might be, then immediately there's a disappointment that is set. You haven't met the expectation that person might have wanted to look up in advance, to see whether you're open, see whether it's worth making the trip, and so on. So clearly communication is going to be very important, and I think just by having a message out on your website that at least offers some sort of explanation of what you're going through just at the moment. Everybody's going through something, and I think that's widely accepted. But I talked earlier about this being a human crisis, and of course people buy from people. I'm a firm believer in that. And people run businesses. People buy from businesses, so they are going to understand there's going to be some disruption. But it always helps just to sort of set that communication in motion. And I think there's a huge opportunity for businesses. We've been sending some email campaigns on behalf of clients this week who have just contacted people to say, look, we're still here, we are closed, but we're going to be welcoming you back as soon as we're open. And people are really responding to these kinds of messages. So, it's not a sales opportunity, but actually it might be, because you're taking the time just to update people. And if you do it on a human level, we see all over social media where where companies have got things wrong. They come to light very, very quickly. There was a hotel group in Scotland that their decisions around their staff, that's got into the public domain, and they've come in for a lot of criticism over it. And I think these sorts of scenarios can be avoided very easily by taking that human approach, having some empathy with what your audience and what other people are going through, and that's really where you can make valuable connections with people. So yes, your website will be, in many cases, the place to do that, because that's usually, not in every case, but that's usually your main authority for where people will go to find information about you online. Social media, obviously not everyone's on social media. You get different age groups that respond differently to content on social media. But your website really does form that hub of information where people should be able to get everything from you from the horse's mouth, as it were. The honest single source of truth is more than likely to be your website.
Wonderful. So if you're a business owner and you're listening, you don't have a website, now is crucial. If there's one thing you can do to help as far as like business continuity, is to really have online presence, to have a website. However basic it is to have a presence online, and to use that as a gate, if you will, gate or a signpost to communicate openly as well. Should business owners, obviously, where a lot of businesses are moving online, should we be worried about like security, or what should the business owner? I mean, there's so much overload of information out there, but in terms of the website, how can we it's same as home, right? Is now going to be home. Business premises are going to be empty, so you'd have to secure, if you will, business premises while it's empty. Same as our website. What should we be thinking about as far as like securing, something like our website or our digital assets?
Yeah, it's a good point, because it's true that in times of crisis, people will find ways of creating opportunity, and those necessarily sometimes might fall into criminal areas. So it's really important that that a website can't be exploited unnecessarily.
Okay.
And there's a few simple ways that can be done. First of all, every website should really now have something called an SSL certificate, and that's a security certificate that is usually indicated by the padlock that sits up in the browser bar just next to where you type in the web address, and that encrypts all the content that is sent between the website and the server. So every website really ought to have one of those now. It actually has become a ranking factor as far as search engine optimization goes. So by not having one, you are potentially doing yourself a disservice in search engine results at Google and so on. The beauty is that a lot of SSL certificates are available very cheaply. They don't have to be expensive, and in fact, you can even get free ones. But fundamentally, an SSL certificate encrypts the traffic between your site, in other words, what I might type into a contact form, and what happens on the server.
Right.
Now, what an SSL certificate doesn't guarantee is the security of your site. So if you have, let's say you're running a website using WordPress, then WordPress will make available updates separately, and that's nothing to do with your SSL certificate. So it is really important to maintain the software that is running your website. It's very much like a home computer. They get regular updates from Microsoft or from Apple, and similarly with websites, WordPress will get updated sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, and obviously WordPress isn't the only system that's out there. There are other platforms too. So as much as you possibly can, you want to keep that website up to date with the most recent release. And that's really going to be one of your main tools to guard against fraud, to guard against your website being hacked. And inevitably, people will find opportunities to do that at this time. And we've always found that WordPress, it needs to be looked after because it's so popular. So it really makes it a little bit of a target. So by keeping your website up to date, it's less likely that your website will be a target, and it's more likely to be somebody else's.
Wonderful. And then what about the like marketing. Should businesses still be marketing to their customers in the face of coronavirus? Saying,
They should. They should, absolutely, because we all have to carry on our lives assuming that this is going to go away. We don't want to be thinking, well, this is the world's end. And clearly, the impact of this is going to be huge. Some people might choose to close their business because of a variety of circumstances. But I think we've all got to try and stay positive and work on the basis that we're going to come out of this. We're going to get to the other side of it. So there's a few things that are going to happen. In between times, if a business has been forced to close, you want to maintain contact with your customers. You don't want to lose that contact, because when it comes to reopening, you want to be front of mind. If somebody's thinking of going to the cinema, you want them to come to your cinema and not go to another one that's in another town. So I think that's one of the main issues, that you want to keep yourself visible, but also you've got an opportunity to look at where else you might be helpful. Where else can you be useful for people in these times of need? Do you have a product or a service that you might be able to adapt to deliver something in a different way? And there are certain scenarios in life when there are new opportunities that present themselves. This is one of them. As I said earlier, we're talking about a human crisis first and foremost. So we do have to be cautious about how we exploit new opportunities around this. And clearly, selling face masks at hugely inflated prices is absolutely wrong. And that's not the sort of thing that I'm talking about.
I know about paracetamol.
But there clearly will be opportunities for business. And we are in business. We have to keep those wheels turning. We've got to keep the cash coming through. We want to keep paying our people. So we do form a critical part of the economy that at this point in time is, quite frankly, been shut down. So we have to try and maintain some momentum there. And if opportunities present themselves, there is nothing wrong with going after them. We might just have to be a little bit more sensitive in how we approach them and how we react towards people that, let's be honest, might be in a slightly less fortunate situation than ourselves. So yes, we should absolutely be marketing to people. We might just need to be a little bit more thoughtful about how we market to them and where we market to them. But it's really important that we maintain that contact and that communication with customers, because we all want to come out of this and we all want our lives to get as close back to normality that we've grown up with as best we can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I know you have some slides that you're going to send through for us, so we're really looking forward to that. But before I let you go, I want your best thinking, because this is for advice, tips, and support. Put the support side, because this is going to create the support. But what's your best advice? What's your number one tip right now to any business owner as far as your industry is concerned? What's the magic word on the lips of Andrew?
So I think right now, the magic word that, as a business owner, obviously myself, that seems to be going round and round and round is cash. Cash is king. And I think, that's the first thing, because without cash, essentially, you've no business to run. So with that in mind, you need to be looking at which apps you might be using, which apps you might not be using, because that is one of the first areas that you can control costs. And there are so many of these apps now that are available. They're all on a subscription model. They might range from $5 a month to sort of $30, $40 a month. And in many cases, without realizing it, people could have $200 of monthly subscriptions, but they're only using a portion of them. So on the subject of cash, think about the applications and the tools that you're using. If you're not fully utilizing them, then maybe there's a strong case to get rid of them. Very few of these are tied into contracts. So you need to be thinking really carefully about which tools can you get the most value from, which of those tools are going to help you to maintain that contact, whether it's email marketing, whether it's your website and so on. What are you going to get the maximum value out of? And anything else, I suspect at this point in time, you really want to consider whether you need it.
Wonderful. So to wrap up, thank you again, Andrew. The key takeout is that if you don't have an online presence, now is the good time. If there's one thing you do as far as business continuity is to have an online presence all the contents that you're creating should be created with a mindset of delivering online. Know that your customers' behavior and their habits will change. So in the little quiet moments, think about how you can serve them in a way that meets how we're now relating to each other with all this, social distancing, if you will. Also, there's nothing wrong with marketing. Maybe just change the tone so it's not too, buy my eggs,
Yes.
sort of thing. Is like, now is a good day to eat pancakes, maybe. And oh, by the way, so think about your marketing language, where it's much more human, and actually, be honest as well in your communication. Use your website as your place of communication to all your customers, and don't cut that flow, because like Andrew said, you want to maintain contact with them, you want to be front of mind. And for me, the best part, magic word, is cash is king. So we may well create a checklist for you where you can list all the apps that you're using on your phone, or even, I think when you go into Google Play on Android, I don't know about apps, so Google Play, you click on your account, there's a list of subscription. And I think you can get a list of all the apps that you've subscribed, because sometimes you change phones and you don't even upload everything.
And these aren't just necessarily mobile apps. These are things like MailChimp. If you're using some sort of CRM system, if you're using some sort of social media scheduling tool, all of these might have some small subscription attached to them. But if at this point, if cash is getting tight, then you can still do your social media. You just don't need a scheduling tool. It might be a little bit more inconvenient, but if it saves you a bit of money, then every little bit helps. So yeah, it's very easy that all of these apps can very often work together, but they all add up in terms of the costs. So just ask yourself, do I really need all of those at the same time?
Exactly. And if you have got any questions, please send your questions through to us. Like I've been saying all along, now is not the time to put your head in the sand. Now is the time to reach out for help, and we're here to support you. Everything we're doing is really to help support your business to ride these times. Please send us an email now at nationsofwomen.com. Andrew's details will be at the end of the session as well. We can happily connect you directly to Andrew to get all the help that you need to get through these seasons. So thank you again. And it's been wonderful having you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
We're very, very grateful to have you in this network, and we hope that we can save a few businesses together during our time here.
Let's hope so. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.